Welcome to episode 238, Journey to Manhood, Embracing Self-Discovery with MarQuez Haynes. Welcome to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvis, mindset specialist and performance coach. And here on the show, I'm going to challenge you to think deeper, commit to greatness, and develop a stronger mindset. You'll hear stories from those who are living life on their terms, and you'll receive strategies that will help you level up. So the question is, are you ready to be your own 1%? Let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. As always, thank you for being here, for showing up to learn, to grow so that you can be your own 1% out there in the world. Today, I have a very special guest, a friend really good friend that I met a year ago in Peru. And for those of you who have been to Peru on any occasion, you'll know how magical the lands are. But MarQuez and I went to and attended a warrior retreats, and it was there that we got to see each other in some of the most rawest forms. And it was through that exchange and connection that we understood each other's paths. And for me, witnessing MarQuez, I got to see such power and leadership and heart-centeredness and an eagerness to grow and learn, and his curiosity of wanting to keep pushing the envelope is what inspired me. And so since then we've collaborated on many different fronts, and I've gotten to witness how he stepped into more of who he is as a man, and to use his words, going from boy to man in a lot of aspects, which I'm sure we'll get into today. But MarQuez is a former professional basketball player. I'm sure he has lots of stories about all the people that he's played against, LeBron included. He is a mindfulness consultant and coach. He's a lifelong learner and a epic traveler. I'll add that one, just because he's constantly in different places in the world. But without further ado, MarQuez, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you having me. I'm excited for this. I've heard amazing things about your podcast, checked out a little bit of it. And yeah, man, for you to want me to be on here and, share this energy with you, I'm excited, man. I'm really excited and honored to be here.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So rapid fire questions here, quick and in a hurry, have the audience get to know you. So first question is, where were you born and raised?
Irving, Texas. It is a suburb right outside of Dallas, about 10 minutes from downtown Dallas. Its claim to fame is that's where the Dallas Cowboys used to play.
Okay.
So they never actually played in Dallas. They played in Irving before they moved to Arlington. So that's where I'm from. Got
it. Is that when they used to be good?
That was the hater. That was
okay. Yeah. Got it.
Okay. We're not far though.
Cool. What's a philosophy that you live by?
That's a good one. A philosophy that I live by. An old one that pops in my head is, I used to say this all the time when I was playing ball, is plan A is succeed, there is no plan B. That was like a big one for me, which is just basically meant never quitting on yourself. Your plan A, always showing up for yourself, continuing to show up. So that was something that I used to really, really stick with.
What is your definition of failure?
Quitting. Giving up. Yes. That's it. It's only no other. You can't fail, unless you just quit.
Love that. What does the world need more of right now?
Love. Oh, it's so easy, man. And it's something that I am every single day start realizing that love transmutes it all, So yeah, love, man, for sure.
What's a game-changing book that you've read recently or in the past?
Some good ones. I would say the first one was The Alchemist, years back. And every time I read it, it's like I'm rereading it for the first time. And most recently, The Surrender Experiment, MarQuez Haynes. Most people know him for The Untethered Soul. The Surrender Experiment, that was maybe a month ago, and that was really, really major for me.
Cool. What is a solid piece of advice that you've received recently or in the past that has served you well?
I've been getting a lot of it lately. A solid piece of advice. I had someone said to me recently, that the depth of your truth is equal to the depth of your power. And so saying that to say that if, when you really step into your truth, like everyone feels that around you. And when you're scared of it, or you don't want to look at certain things, or you don't want to go into certain spaces, it's going to be reflected outside of you. And the sometimes it's scary to go into those truths, but the deeper I go into them, the more like the everyday stranger reacts completely different to me. Everything around me vibrates differently because like I'm staring my truths in the face, good, bad, and different, as you go through the changes, but to be there with it, regardless of what it looks like. Yeah. So that was it. The depth of your truth is equals the greatness of your power. And that's been a big one for me lately.
I like that. I like that. What did you do? What did you have to give up or sacrifice in order to get to where you are today?
I would say, so there's two answers to that, because there's like almost like two phases of my life. I feel like I had the phase where I guess people would consider it more like survival mode, coming from where I come from, and especially in the trying to make it in sports, very competitive, right? And so there's just a healthy amount of ego that it takes to succeed in that space. How you balance it is how you balance it, but you need it. It's like it's at the forefront of kind of a lot of what you're doing. And so in that space, I had to sacrifice and give up just a lot of time with family, I wasn't the best like brother, son, boyfriend, like all of those different roles. I kind of had to sacrifice a lot of that to be the best in this space. And in this other phase of life is like the exact opposite. It's like I've sacrificed a lot of personal stuff, because it's more about the group now. It feels like it's more about community. It's more about, so sometimes the individual goals aren't even as important, where the ego is turning to the front. So I've kind of sacrificed a lot of the selfish part of it, the selfish goals, where it's not even, you've got so many of those, you've done it so much that when you get them, it doesn't feel as good if everyone's not there with you doing it. If you don't have the community, if you haven't given, so I think it's been like that flip, of what I've sacrificed in one area, and now it's kind of like swapped.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. I feel that. I know that in the time that we've known each other, there's been some transitions with the group, the team that you've been forming compared to maybe years past. What have you learned in the releasing of relationships that, let's just say, aren't supportive anymore? Maybe they served a point at some point, but now they're no longer necessary or valuable. And then there's ones where you like that makes you grow.
Yeah.
What have you learned, and how have you gone about that process so that those who may be in similar situations can take something from that?
Yeah. So anytime you're going through major transformation of any kind, even small transformations, they're just, like you said earlier, certain things you have to sacrifice. This has been a tough one for me because there is a piece of me that almost, coming from a space of even like a socioeconomically, it's a place that's not, all the resources aren't there. So there's almost like at a certain level, a little bit of like survivor's remorse that comes with that, where you're like, ooh, then you don't want to leave people behind, or you don't want to end certain relationships, or you want to do it all. You want to bring and truth be told, like, it doesn't work like that. What I'm learning in this life is you got to travel light. And so when it comes to the relationships, the first thing I had to do was just look at the alignment, right? Like, and look at, is this relationship more about my past, or is it more about my future? And seeing how does it fit? How do I feel? And if it's taking me back to old energy that's not serving me anymore, then I need to take some real looks at that, and if it's pushing me, because relationships are uncomfortable in all sorts of ways anyway, but is this like pushing me, stretching me, expanding me, pushing me to grow, then it's like you kind of got to make space for it. No matter, you got to make sure it's there. So I think that the key element of it is the alignment. It's just, is this where I'm trying to go, or is this where I've been? And that's a key element of it. But then you also have the part of it where now you got to start having these hard conversations. You can't just ghost people that you've cared about, or you can't just disappear. And the one thing that I've kind of realized in this life is there's really no such thing as finality. At the end of the day, some relationships have ran their course, but the love is always there, or the bond that you shared is always there. Some of them have kind of ran their course in the moment, and you're going to double back. Right now we go on our separate way, but you're not all the way finished with that relationship. It's just in this moment it doesn't serve. And then you got these relationships where you need to continue to cultivate and put your energy towards it and help it flourish and grow. And you can't do that everywhere. You have to actually decide. And so that's what, like, for me with these relationships, that I'm like, okay, this is old energy, and it's actually keeping me from being who I'm trying to be, who I need to be, what God is asking me to be, what the world needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what you're making me think of is a framework that I learned some years back. It was like, people come into your life for three reasons: season, reason, lifelong, right? Yep. Like, it's just, and it kind of fits into what you're saying there. And I think it's a good way of looking at it, and the finality piece, at that time, that person served its purpose. Mm-hmm. So it's not like we're asking you to forget that. Mm-hmm. It's just now, like, to your point, what is the future that I want? And is this person going to help me get there? And do they even want to get there? And then the answer is no, then you got to do something about it. That's beautiful, man. I love that. And having those right relationships allow you to explore parts of yourself that you didn't even know were there, because they're great mirrors, and they provide really solid space for you to explore, which is cool. And I think in these new relationships, in these new cities and countries that you're visiting and learning and extracting wisdom from, one of the things that you mentioned that has been top of mind for you is your relationship with the feminine. Mm-hmm. And I'd love for you to talk about that. But first, I think anyone who is listening to this and is like, feminine, like, what are you talking about, man? MarQuez is going to break it down for you. But basically, we have masculine and feminine inside everyone, right? Mm-hmm. And there's different elements to each, and both are powerful. And the individual that can harness both of those just becomes super dynamic and very effective at all aspects of life. So I'd love to hear your perspective on what you're learning there, what you're releasing, what you're adding, and how it's affecting your life.
Yeah, I'm trying to even think where to start. It's a lot here. Okay, so this period of my life has definitely been a lot about just reconnecting or reevaluating my relationship with the feminine, not just externally, but internally, like my feminine, my that's the pieces of me that have, in a sense, kind of been neglected, right? And as you were saying, we all have both. And typically, a lot of times, especially in the worlds I've come up in, the masculine, like that feminine side gets completely neglected. Like there's no space for that. And when I say the feminine, I mean the side that is, more receptive, that's more in flow, that is not so linear, that's less logical, that feels, and for me, it's been a lot of logic, linear thinking, strategizing, building, and that has its place, but that balance starts to really expand you in totality. And what I started to learn is that I had a lot of feminine wounds. You start with your first relationships, in the feminine, and that's my mother and my sister. Well, my mother, dope. Like me and my mother are like best friends. It's my ace. It's my rock. But she had us young. She had my sister at 17. She was pregnant with me at 21. Father's 23 when they're pregnant with me. So early in a household that is kind of struggling financially, there's not a lot of place for softness or feelings or emotions. Everyone's working and everybody's trying to do what they got to do. And, if one flat tire in the house could mess up the whole month, and so it's, you learn quickly that there's not a lot of safe spaces to go with how to process your emotions, not just how to process them, but even how to identify or feel them, or admit that you feel them, or to just, a soft place to land, a hug, a kiss, touch, all these different things that round you out, that make you not so, so rough or so tough or so, and that imbalance has caused a lot of issue in my relationships, a lot of emotional unavailability. Everything is just logical, and if someone's talking to me or something, I can't meet you. I can't hold space for you from the heart. I can't, meet you where you're at. I can't just listen to you, feel you, be there with you. I can't do that. I have to fix it. You tell me something and immediately, or I'm judging it, or I'm telling you what you need to do. Nothing lands here. I can't even afford that. And so then obviously we all have our traumas and our troubles. And as you go through life, and those, they always hit in childhood, you have no clue what to do with it. Not only do you not have someone to teach you how to do it, you don't have anywhere to go with it. And in my particular environment, there was nowhere to go. There was no soft place to land. All the adults, my parents were, when they had us 21 and 23, all the adults around them, aunts, uncles, everybody were younger than them. My parents were the two oldest. And so there's just a lot of frustration and a lot of like trying to figure it out. So as a child, by the time you're old enough to understand some things, 4 or 5 years old, you feel like the world is pretty rough. It's pretty tough, and I'm not even talking about the things that were happening outside of the family, like just when I walked outside, what was going on. And so it taught me how to be tough. It taught me how to go make stuff happen. It taught me how to rise above certain things, but it did not teach me how to feel. And, this time in my life has shown me where that's been holding me back. Where if I would have, now that I've mastered this ability to think, strategize, and build and create, it's given me wisdom beyond my years. And someone said this to me the other day. They were like, "MarQuez, your level of understanding and your level of wisdom is far beyond your years. Now we got to build this ability to feel those things that you understand so well." And it hit me so hard. I was like, ooh, like, because it's true, and I've just cracked that door open. Now, when you crack that door open, there's a lot of things waiting on you that you've been hiding from or suppressing or not dealing with. And that I did not understand. I thought you move past it, something happens, you get on. And when you open up that door, whoo, there's a lot waiting on you, And so just that feminine, tapping into the feminine, not only is it changing my relationship with women in general, but my own feminine, but it's just allowing me to feel. It's allowing me to process emotions. It's allowing me to be more comfortable. It's allowing people to be safe with their emotions around me.
Yeah.
That's been, generally speaking.
I love that. And I'm curious so obviously you were a professional basketball player at a high level, championship teams, breaking records. Do you think, now understanding more of this feminine side, that you could have done what you did in a similar way, if maybe better, if you had this feminine energy integrated?
Ooh, if I would have, see, first of all, there were times I was tapping into it and I didn't understand that I was tapping into it. And those were the times, like, I try to tell athletes now, when you find that flow, like the zone, when you find the zone where everything's working, that is tapping into your feminine. You're not
Yes.
strategizing when you're in the zone. There's no game plan. There's no linear thinking. Nothing's logical in the zone. It's all feeling. It is completely body's doing exactly what it knows to do. You're not in your mind. And so I've told athletes to explain it. I've told basketball players this. I'm like, when you're shooting in the gym and let's say you've made, I asked them, like, what's the most shots you've ever made in a row? For me, it's like, I think like 60 is where before I missed. And I was telling them that when you're in that flow, you're completely in the feminine. There is no, and as soon as you think, as soon as your mind creeps in, someone says something, you think about it, you miss. Your body has completely clicked in. And I try to break it down to people by like the body, the feeling, that's your feminine. The mind, the mental is your masculine. And so both are necessary. But if you understand them both, you know which one is necessary. When it's
that's the wisdom, right?
And that's the integration, right, that you're talking about. And yeah, so if I would have understood it better, I would have known when is it time to get like out of my mind or out of the logical thinking, or when is it time to soften, especially in team sports. When is it time to soften? When is it time to be receptive? When is it time to listen? When is it time to allow, opposed to forcing your agenda or doing what, So for sure, if I would have understood it, it would have definitely, at least it have made my career a lot less stressful.
Right. Because I imagine, people would argue that the darker side of the ego and the pain and the fear could be great motivators, and maybe to some degree they are accessing what we're talking about, more that feminine side. But I do think that because of maybe not as much awareness around what we're talking about, it's only pursued one dimensionally, and that's pushed through always, like no excuses, like a Kobe Mamba mentality. But I also think that Mamba felt more than people realize he did. But I wanted to get your take on that, because sport can be superimposed over professional life. It could be used as an example for other areas. And so I'm happy to hear that, what you said. That's good.
Yeah, for sure.
So
go ahead. One thing, it's funny you said that about Kobe, who is my favorite athlete of all time. And one of the things that sometimes, like you said, things are mirrors, right? So now there's probably not a Kobe clip or story or any of this that I have not seen. I've probably seen everything Kobe. And the deeper I go and the things I uncover, I realize how ahead of his time he was, because the feeling that you're talking about, I see it and hear it now, where before I couldn't, because I only had one level of understanding. And now that I've opened it up, the things I've heard of him, like, I'm like, oh, he got it. He did. He was very intuitive, very in his truth early. And people didn't like him because of it. Here's a 17-year-old that says, I'm going to be the greatest to do this. And now, obviously, he doesn't have the skills in communication and the skills and the ability to deal with people because he's 17, but his truth was grounded and centered, and he was always in it, and even those things, you're like, wow, he had it at 17, what I'm learning at 33, 34, 35,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love it, man. I can talk about Kobe forever. Another thing that you mentioned, you've been learning the last 6 months, and I mean, you probably your whole life really, but more so, it's been more top of mind, more mindful about it, more aware of it, is personal integrity.
Yeah.
How do you view integrity? I have my own definition, but how do you view it, and how do you live it, and what are the byproducts of doing that?
Yeah, man. And this has been an interesting one for me, and specifically going back to truth. One of my problems when it came to integrity early was I only wanted to look at the areas of my life where I was in integrity. That's what I wanted to shine the light on. And the other stuff, it's shadow, and I don't want to look over there. Like, it's that dark corner that's got all kinds of stuff in there, but you don't want to shine the light on it. And, for me, integrity is what do you stand on? You know, what do you stand on? What do you stand for? And what are those parts of you that are solid, and that this is not gonna bend or break depending on the situation, and you know, and depending on how things go, you know. And to me, like, that's it's been at the forefront of things for a while, and it took me a minute to really start to hone in and zero in. And it took a few things in my life going completely wrong that I actually cared about to start to be like, well, wait, you know, early, you know, from an accountability standpoint, you know, we want to, when things go wrong, we want to blame others, you know. And for me, that it's all connected. That integrity piece circles all the way back to that feminine womb. And that's where it showed up the most for me. But that was the place I didn't want to look at, because that's the place that hurt the most, you know. And so as far as integrity went, there was always some excuse when it came to my behavior with the feminine. And I'm not just, we can go from romantic to family to friends to anything, where you're in these positions and you're in these situations, and yeah, like, how am I reacting and responding and treating? Am I being truthful and honest, or am I manipulating? Am I suppressing? Am I not listening? Am I showing up fully? And so for me, this time has been, all right, let's put the magnifying glass on the places where your integrity is in question. Let's put the magnifying glass on the places where you might, you know, if no one's looking, you might do something else. You know, if no one can see it and it's quiet and it's in the shadows, you might do something else. Like, let's put the magnifying glass on those things. And we can go deeper, but I just wanted to hit you with my idea of integrity.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about, the magnifying glass, what that allows you to do is to reveal your leaky faucets, right? The drips. And by shoring those up, you become way more clear. And I would say way more present.
Yeah.
And when you're clear, present, and in your truth, you care less about what other people are thinking, and you care most about what value you want to bring, right? And that doesn't mean that you're trying to solve people's problems. You just know who you are, and you know what you can do, and you show up, and you allow the moment to reveal what needs to happen next, and then you go through with it. And so life becomes like it becomes more of a fun dance, as opposed to like like a Rubik's Cube to try and figure out. Sometimes it's not about figuring out. Sometimes the figuring it out is just the releasing of what you think it needs to be in order to feel what it actually is.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. Add on to that.
Yeah, that last thing you said was like it's something that sometimes it's not something to figure it out. It's releasing all this, everything you got going on, so it can just reveal itself what it is to you. You're doing all this extra stuff, and you know, from an integrity standpoint, right? Like, for me, I quickly realized that my integrity would be in question in the spaces where I was trying to get needs met from places that I didn't want to examine. So the wounds, where are the wounds? And that's typically, so for me, the trying to get certain needs met. I had a big issue growing up early with the feminine. So it's emotional availability. So early, I started to do little things to get that need met early, like even as a child. So you're like, with the feminine, you want the attention and you want the love. And so you do things to act out. You try to get attention. You do. I remember with me and my sister, she was 5 years older. So she's having her own things going on. She's a child, but so we had our own little conflicts, right? She used to make fun of me a lot. One of the cool, like actually a cool story I have about it is I used to wear glasses, and she used to be on me about my glasses. And so recently I bought these specific glasses because they're like the ones when I grew up. And it was like me my idea of like validating myself again and, coming back home to myself and my truths. And I say that to say that, you're young, so you're 5-6 years old, and you're the only two women, one is just working hard. She's busy. She, you want her attention. And then the other one, is your sister. And, she's going through her own thing and you just want their attention. So you start doing little things. You start changing who you are and you start saying little things that they would want to hear or want. So you start losing yourself in that. And that's at 5-6 years old, you're already starting to lose your integrity to go get that need met. And if you never actually go back and take a look at that and really start to heal that behavior gets refined as an adult. Mm-hmm. So now that manipulation where you're a 6-year-old and maybe you stubbed your toe and it ain't that bad, so you're crying crazy on the floor, it ain't that bad because trying to get the attention. Now at 30 years old, that's a total different thing now. You're not crying because you stubbed your toe. You're like really manipulating people. You're really saying things people want to hear to get a certain desired result.
Yeah.
And for me, like as a gifted, charismatic, charming, talented, intelligent individual, that could get really ugly. That when it's unconscious behavior and you're not even realizing what or why you're doing things, and you're not even realizing it in the moment until the aftermath, and there's chaos. Now there's chaos. But it's too painful to look at to actually take accountability for it. You just have to get away from it. So you basically just ruin this woman or this person. They're going crazy. And now you're looking at them like, yo, why are you tripping? Like, yo, I gotta get away from that. And never actually saying like, damn, like what about me? Like what? And so after
what part did I play in this?
Yeah, after enough of that, you be like, And then at first it starts like that, but you still don't want to take a look all the way. You want to look at it, but you want to take some accountability, and then you want to be like, and then eventually after enough of it, man, like, when God starts calling you, when that alarm clock start, ringing, that wake up, you start to really take a look at it all. And you start to go back and be like, oh, okay, that's the same. It's the same energy as when I was 6. It's the same energy when I was 16. It's the same energy when I was 22. It's just different faces, different situations. It's the same thing. And the integrity piece for me allows me to be me. And in that truth, no matter what the situation is, it doesn't matter what's happening in the dark or in the light, and that's for us all, that's an ongoing thing. There's no such thing as perfect as a human. But the key for me is, if I am out of my integrity, I must be truthful with myself about that, so I can address it. I have to be real with myself or whoever else is involved about that. I have to, tell my truth. And that allows me to look in the mirror every day, be solid, feel good about what I'm doing, and know that at the end of the day, like anchoring in truth will keep me in integrity. And when I'm not, if I anchor in truth, it will bring me back to integrity quicker before all the chaos starts to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. What's coming up for me is a couple questions. One, and I think you're like, you've answered it, and maybe I'll ask it just in the case that you maybe have left something out. My first question is, why go through all that?
Mm-hmm.
Why go through the painful process of looking yourself in the mirror and taking ownership? I mean, granted, I know why I would do it, but there's people out there that are hearing you and being like, why would you put yourself through so much pain?
Mm-hmm.
And like all of this. And so that's question number one. I have another question, but I guess we'll just start there.
Well, I mean, I'll answer generally, then specifically. Generally, because there's only, when you don't go there with yourself, like when you don't actually get in there and go there, there's like a filter on life. Like it's never, the sky's not going to be as blue as it could be. The trees won't be as green as they could be. The fun won't be as fun. You're really capping how much life you can live. You're really capping like the actual like life force within you, and how awesome and amazing this can be, because you can't feel so deeply. You just can't feel it. And the reason you can't feel is because you're hiding from the other stuff that you don't want to feel. So if you don't want to feel the bad emotions and the bad, and you're hiding from that, you're protecting yourself from it, you can't feel the good stuff either. You know, it's equal. You're not getting away from it. So at a certain point in my life, I say, well, I was about 32, this was about 3 years ago, you know, I started to, it's almost like in that when you're kind of hiding from yourself and lying to yourself and, you know, going after and doing all these things that maybe you shouldn't, once you win at that enough, you start to realize this doesn't feel very good. You know, if for me, it's okay, the professional athlete lifestyle, right? Okay, winning championships, making money, women everywhere, nightlife, and whatever I want, pretty much on that level of things. And when you come from where I come from, that's like the pinnacle. It's like that's what everybody wants. Like, you know, this is what you want. But it's the reason people feel that way is because the people that are saying that are the people that have never actually been there. They don't actually know what it's like. They don't know what it feels like. So when you get there and all the people that have never actually felt it think they put you on this pedestal, only you know deep down, this actually doesn't even feel good. You know, there's nothing fulfilling about all these women. There's nothing feels good about being up 3, 4 in the morning and I wake up tired and there's nothing, you know what I mean? And there's no amount of money that's going to erase any of your trauma and pain. You know, there's no amount of trophies that's going to do it. You know, when I won my first championship, you know, everyone was going crazy and I was too, but it was just because I was supposed to. Truth be told, I just felt like relief. I was like, wow, relief. It wasn't even joy. You know, the next one I won, my last one I won, I remember I was holding the trophy and I asked myself, would you go through everything you just went through? Because it was a really tough year. I was like, would you go through all of that again for this feeling to hold this trophy? And my answer was no. You know, so it's like, that's the first element of like, well, you realize like there has to be more to it than this. Because this is not giving me the feelings that I thought it would give me. I had a super mansion. You know what I mean? I had everything, whatever you could possibly want, you know? And I'm like, but I don't feel good. I don't feel good. And I started to realize that the journey is not just to like, go try to have this and have that and do all these things. It's actually to like go back and release those things that are like hold you. It's the baggage, it's the pain, it's the trauma. So you have to feel it to let it go. You got to go back to it to let it go. And, you know, a lot of times in life, we try to like change behavior, you know, but what I find is that the deeper the wound, the more the behavior change is unsustainable. You have to actually go through true human transformation. You have to actually go back and get in those places and put yourself back in that space and realize that, you know, the 6-year-old didn't have the answers. The 16-year-old might not have, but the 35-year-old actually does. The only problem is the 6-year-old, 16-year-old has never been heard. They've been back there in the back making all the decisions for you this entire time. That's where all this, you know, and so you don't have any, if you want to feel and you want like, if you want like the truest of love, not just with others, but with self, you know, if you want those things, you got to go back to that place, those big, scary places. And those are inside of you. You got to go back there and you have to not only go back and that's where they talk about the inner child work, go back and validate and rescue that inner child, but you have to go back and realize, oh, I had it all along, you know, and I have it now. So for me, the big aha moment was a situation with a person that I love dearly, you know, and I'm in that old energy, that old mentality. And, you know, you're making these poor decisions and you don't even know where they're coming from. You know, you're like, I don't know. And you look, and for me, it's the lifestyle that I love so much. And then you got the stuff that really matters, the relationships, your friendships, your friends, family, your loved ones, And at this time, it's my girlfriend who's living with me in Italy. And I get caught doing stupid stuff that you do in this lifestyle. And for the first time, just looking this person in the eye, I'm like, why did I do that? Or I don't even know if I'm capable of allowing myself to be emotionally available enough to where I would never do stuff like that. And that was like the moment, like 3 years ago, like that is where it clicked in, that I was like, oh, this stuff is tucked so deeply that like it's gonna take real work, real commitment, real willingness to actually go there and reprogram myself, because this is years and years and years. And so that was like the actual moment, and that uncovered 20 years worth of stuff I had been hiding from. It started. Yeah.
That's cool. So when you were talking about the 6-year-old, the 16-year-old, and the current self, what that reminded me of is Michael Gervais is a sports psychologist. He was for the Seattle Seahawks, and he works for some pretty big companies now. And he was being interviewed, and he asked a question to the interviewer. And he's like, when you talk about change with humans, human behavior changing, he's like, what's actually changing? And he paused. And so in that pause, I was like thinking, well, the behavior would change and maybe the identity change. And he's like, but the more he kept talking about it, what he realized and what he shared with me was like, there really isn't as much change as there is about revealing. Right? Because the core you has always been there. That's something that you just said. It's always there. We just have wounds over it or scar tissue that we don't press enough to like realize it. But once you become aware enough, you start unraveling like the onion, and then pretty soon the flower blooms, because it's not being restricted by societal expectations or pressures or hypnosis or lies that we heard once that sounded good and maybe helped us because it protected us, but now no longer serve us and allow us to blossom. And so what that made me think of is like change is more so about revealing and releasing than it is about like hardcore chiseling and like jackhammering and like the typical change that we think about, which I thought was a really cool way of explaining it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I feel like everything I've done up until this point has literally just been letting things go that weren't me or don't serve me. It's just let it go, release it, let it go. It's not you. It was never you, like you said. And I feel like the feeling that I've been looking for all this time was not associated with any type of like acquisition or accomplishment, or it was with feeling light. Carrying all this stuff with you. It's like letting go. It was feeling lighter. It's like, oh man. And that's the response that the world is starting to give me. Cause I'm light. People like, I've had people come up to me and they be like, yo, like whatever you got, like I want some of it. I've had people say that to me. There's like,
you take it, man.
Yeah, it's like you just look so zen. Like there's like, you just look like, there's like, what is it? Like what you be doing? Like, it's like, I mean, and I get it now because I'm not in my head so much. I'm not calculating and trying to maneuver and plot and plan, and just me, like, what I'm saying? This is it. And I had to let go of a lot of things, not just externally, but internally, mostly a lot of, stuff that I've been holding on to for a really long time. So
that's great. That's great, man. If you were to take yourself 3 years ago and where you are now, and if we look at time with a past, present, future lens, 3 years ago, where would you split your time? Like X amount of time I was in the past thinking, X amount of time, and maybe it changes to different contexts and situations, but let's just go like a general statement. 3 years ago to now, where do you spend more of your time?
Yeah, I would say, so back then it was definitely in the future. Like I would spend like more often than not, I'm calculating or plotting or planning something for what's going to happen, or worrying or being anxious or worried about everything. Was like, oh, I don't want to do this, or I'm going to do this because I don't want this to happen in the future. It's all like worried about what's going to happen, never being here. And then I guess most of that future worry comes from some past situation, but I'm not consciously thinking about so much the past. It's always something in the future, the next thing. Yeah. And so, yeah, 3 years ago, definitely future more than anything.
Mm-hmm. And now you'd say more present for sure.
Much more present now. It's because of the type of work I've been doing recently, there's a lot of past, like I'm digging up, I'm like actively digging up a lot of past stuff, but it's much more present. And the cool thing is, I did a lot of traveling this summer, is that once I started to like live more in the present and just stay in that flow, anytime I try to get too far ahead of myself in the future, it's like I get like slapped on the wrist, like from the universe. Like I can't, it doesn't work that way for me right now because all the magic is happening right now. And so, like, obviously I have my plans and desires and wants for what I want to happen. But the more I kind of just set it right here to the side, it's right here by me. I know what I want. But then like sometimes life is showing me, God is showing me, universe is showing me, but you need to go over here. This is going to be bigger than anything you could ever expect if you go over here. But if you got your own plan, go ahead and go over there. But it's going to take you a little longer, And so I just now, when I get too far ahead in the future, I just bring myself back and I realize that, right now, all the magic is happening. And if I show up to right now, present, fully, eyes wide open, I get all the information I need to make the future exactly what I want it to be. But when I get too far ahead in the future, I miss the information that's right in front of me. It's like right here, it's so obvious, just do that. But sometimes that's uncomfortable, so we're human. Yeah. But the magic's happening now, and it's made it to where I'm not in the future very much. Only when it's time. Like when I see it, it's like, all right, boom. Now let's apply all that old wisdom I had, that ability to build and the ability to like to grind and go and push forward. But only when I see the information in the moment is when I apply that now. So it's kind of like a 180.
That's cool.
Or to now.
What are some things that years ago you just took for granted and you didn't take the time to truly appreciate, whether it's, a cup of coffee or, where you were staying, as opposed to it? So what were those things? And then how do you view those things now? And, or maybe new things that are even more simple, but have become more profound?
Yeah. So first thing that popped in my head was first thing popped up is like those moments where you're like uncontrollably laughing. Like when you're with a friend or when you're with whatever it is, like a good TV show, something like those moments where you just cannot stop laughing. Those are like some of the brightest moments in life, and the energy surrounded that just comes from that. Like, oh, it's so much good. When you see someone laughing, even when I'm not laughing, and it's so funny to somebody else, it's like, it just reminds you of that childlike nature, because kids do that all the time, and
Yeah.
they kind of live in that magic. So that's one, like, where I'm like, wow, like I never actually, because I'm here now, like those moments of just like that laughter. And that's typically for me takes me to like just deep connection. There's a few people in my life where like we really can get in that space and just, be so there with each other in this moment. And nature. Yeah. Nature's been a major one. Like growing up, like, I grew up in concrete apartments. Like, it wasn't really a thing. And man, the older I get, the more I'm seeking it out. Like if there's anything, or I go to a city, I'm kind of looking for whatever's the most impressive piece of nature, or the piece that everyone doesn't necessarily know about. And nature is giving it's instant presence. You get into nature, immediately you're there. The downloads start hitting this, nature. Yeah.
So let's say someone is on this self-discovery journey, or they're new to it, and they're hearing what you're saying. They're like, yeah, I want that. I want that Zen, regardless of what happens to me in my life, good, bad, indifferent. I want to start cultivating that. What would you say is a few places to start? Because everyone has like their own story and their own back history, but just some things that have helped you that you think would be worthy of mentioning here.
Yeah. So I would say the first place I would start, and I think it starts and ends here, honestly, is creating space for stillness. And that looks a little different for everybody, what that looks like. But most of us, the average person I talk to is they're just too busy with life to get still. There's too much going on around them from the time they wake up all the way to the time they go to sleep. You wake up, you get on your phone, check social media, check your email, check your text messages, boom, boom, boom. So the moment you get up, you're not even in your own energy. It's all this other energy hitting you. The whole world is blasting their energy at you. Then you get up. If you got kids, you get them ready. If you don't, you're getting ready for work, or you watch some TV, whatever the case may be. So more energy just hitting you, all these different energies. Then you go to work. We all know how that goes, depending on, your work environment. Come home, get your kids, cook dinner, do whatever, hop on social media, watch TV, go to sleep, do it again. So there's, at no point in time are you ever actually just sitting with yourself. And most people, whenever they do have some moments to sit with themselves, they fill that space with something else.
Yes.
If you have space in your day, or you have time, let's say you got an hour free, you want to go do something else. You want to go online shop. You want to call up somebody randomly. You want to scroll more on social media, even sometimes the healthy habits get in the way, like you want to watch a YouTube, or you want to read a book, and that's cool. But it's still just as important as that book or that YouTube is you to spend time with you. And the ability to get still with self introduces you to yourself. All right. You asked me a question. Where was my thoughts broken up? When I first started to practice with a little bit of stillness, the first thing that I noticed was where my thoughts were, because I couldn't get still. Most people think when you sit down and get still, that's going to be just complete stillness. And that's not, if you haven't been practicing, that's not realistic. But sometimes to just observe and monitor your thoughts for 5-10 minutes is enough, to start. To just sit down for 5 minutes and just see where your mind goes, and that is going to give you an awareness of thought. Are your thoughts negative or positive? Or is it past or future? Are you thinking about finances or relationship, your plans for the future? Are you thinking about your family, whatever? And knowing where your thoughts actually go, because a lot of times, truth be told, they'll be different than you think. I've always been pretty resilient and thought of myself as very optimistic, but typically my optimism kicks in later. When I observe my thoughts, they were decently negative at first, decently pessimistic, decently worried and anxious thoughts. Then I would move them and shift to optimism. And I didn't know that until I actually sat with myself. If someone would have told me that I had anxiety or I worried, or I'd have been like, nah, not really. I'm positive. Until I sat with thoughts for 10 minutes and you're like, oh, I got to actually meet myself. So that's where I would start. It's not easy at first. That monkey mind is real. When you sit down and meet yourself, you don't always see stuff that you want to see. But
Yeah.
5 minutes is enough to start noticing things. And if you can do 5-10 minutes a day early, you'll start to have a breakthrough quickly, where you either something clicks in, some piece of information hits, or you come out of it and things are just a little slower than they were before. You can hear the birds chirping, your senses are a little bit heightened, and everything is a little bit more still. Mm-hmm. So then when that text message comes through that typically would have triggered you or bothered you or heightened you, it actually meets some calm energy from you. Someone texts you, the world is ending, and you're like, instead of being like, oh my God, what happened? Tell me. Or they're not answering the phone back and you're worried, you're like, hit them 10 times. When they send you that text, the text that the world is ending, what they meet is your energy, which is, okay, let's breathe. Let's, what's going on? Mm-hmm. What is it? Talk to me. You okay? Breathe it out. And then they're calm all of a sudden. And that was just because you just, each day for 10 minutes, you just calmed yourself, you got here. So I would say that's a great place to start. And from there, if you do that, the door's open. Right. Honestly,
you kind of be guided to do what's next from there.
You just got to create the space. That's the hardest thing. Most people don't want to create that in their day. You got to move something. You have to take something out and be like, this is going to be my time for me to meet myself.
There was someone I interviewed named Amy Morin. She was the author of 13 Things Mentally Strong People Either Don't Do or Do. I can't remember the exact title, but I was interviewing her and she mentioned a study where they gave a group of individuals an option between sitting with themselves for 15 minutes in silence or undergoing electric shock to the point where it would be painful. And it was like some 75-80% chose the shock. Like, isn't that's so that was, I was just like, wow, like we would actually rather do anything else than sit with the most important person in the world. Yeah. Like if you had an opportunity to sit with Jesus, wow, cool. If you had an opportunity to sit with Jeff Bezos or whoever you hold at a really high level in your mind, right? You would drop everything to have that opportunity, and most people would.
Exactly.
But what happens if you see yourself like that as your own guru, as in that silence, you receive the wisdom that only is meant for you, from you, by you. Wow. Right. Like then you're sourcing your own confidence. You're sourcing your own expression and truth, which is so, so beautiful. And that's the advantage. That's what makes you unique. That is what was only gifted to you that no one else can cultivate for you. That's all your work, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing was, this when you sit and you notice these thoughts of more anxious tendency. I'm more anxious tendency driven than stillness, so I've had to work on that too. But when we are compounding this present moment with a future thought that hasn't happened yet, or a past thought, what's happening is, I learned this from Michael Gervais, is like we're overlaying that moment that's not happening now on top of the moment that's happening now. So there's actually two or more moments happening right now in the moment, which naturally speeds up time. Yep. So no wonder why we feel anxious. Now, if we remove those layers so that we are lighter, it's almost like people will say, well, time slows down. Well, it doesn't necessarily slow down. You're just on time. You're one with time, as opposed to speeding up time, And so it was like, wow, that is so true. And like being on time is so beautiful because it allows you to catch things that you can't catch when you're moving too fast, because you're trying to get to a place you don't even know if you want. Most people are trying to get to a place they think they should want, and they got to get there as fast as possible. And you're like, bro, why? Wow. Why are you in such a hurry?
Wow.
Slow down to figure out, one, you're on the right path. And two, if you slow down, you'll actually appreciate the path more, which will make almost the outcome not the important thing. It's what's happening right now and who you're becoming along the way. That's actually the most important thing.
Exactly. And that's what you can take with you. That's what you're going to take with you, is who you became. I'm not carrying championship trophies with me. I'm not introducing myself with a championship trophy. People are asking why I'm so zen, because it was this journey that led me. They're not asking, what I mean? That's measured what you just said. And the whole time as you're speaking, that all that's coming through for me is just simply that what you said earlier, which is removing the layers. But what you just said, you remove layers to clarity. The clarity is there. It's not something you got to find this Rubik's Cube, like you said. It's there. It's underneath all this madness and all the things in your to-do list and this and that and all these different fears and worries and thoughts and your social media and this and your job and your kids and your this, and we got to get up. The clarity is literally right underneath all of that. Like, just if you just kind of, I tell this story a lot. When I went to Peru and met you, that was a very turbulent time in my life. This was about a year ago this time. This was one of the most turbulent times in my life. I was having financial issues, liquidity. I was in investing and I was doing stuff. Money's everywhere. I'm like, one of the scariest financial times I've ever been in. It was bringing out the worst in me. It was showing me a mirror of my worst self. And Peru came up at a time where I was like, you know what? Not only am I doing it, but everything I got going on here at home, I'm setting it to the side. So when you're in a turbulent time and your to-do list is when you wake up at 6, 7 a.m. and you're doing things until 9, 10 p.m., you know how that is. You feel like there's not enough hours in the day. I can't do anything. So when I decided to go to Peru, I went 3 weeks. I decided to go no phone, no internet, no communication to the States. I told my family, I said, when I get on this plane, if you don't hear anything from me, that's good news. If y'all hear something from the retreats, that means something bad happened. So the courage it took to say, you know what, I'm gonna put all this stuff down. And when I come back, either one of two things is gonna happen. Either it'll be okay, which we all know deep down it'll be okay. Or if the fires got way bigger, because there was a lot of fires going on that I needed to be in touch with daily. If the fires get bigger, then I'm gonna have the presence and the calm to deal with them with much more skill than I did before I got on that plane. And coming back home after 3 weeks of that type of chaos around me and coming back and realizing, oh, the sky didn't fall. Oh, like, oh, it will be okay. Oh, it's like I stopped time is what it felt like for 3 weeks. And that was like a key piece of I knew from that day forward, okay, I'm human, so I have my emotions, but I'll never panic again, ever. Never. Because what I was going through at that time, and to walk away, say, you know, at 3 weeks, I ain't even gonna look at it. Like, I got stuff that I'm gonna do here. If there's something going on and this deadline is hitting and I can't meet this and I'm gonna be late to this, just push it. It'll be all right. It'll be okay. And I'm gonna always maintain my center and my calm. And what I've noticed is that everything around me meets it. You know, people are on deadlines and they're pressing me. And I'm like, if I have the space and I can do it, I'm gonna do it. I'm a hard worker. But if it's not, and I'm sending myself into disarray, I'm gonna tell them, be like, wait, I can do that next week. I got you. But it's due in 2 days. I was like, well, I'll deal with that then. Okay. Oh, there's a late fee. Okay, I'll deal with that. It's okay. Then typically it always works out. They just always like, well, okay, we can do it. You know, it always works. So that has been key for me to slow my life down and not, like you said, compound. Take this moment, put another moment on it, speed everything up, worry myself, stress myself about stuff that's gonna work out in the long, and it always does, and we know that.
Mm-hmm.
So now I just want to be in that experience of knowing that and having that faith. And also, if it doesn't work out the way I planned it to, that's okay too.
Right.
Okay.
Either way, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool, man. Dude, I appreciate you sharing, you know, all the growth and the insights that you've been having over the course of, you know, your whole life. I know that your story impacts so many people, and I'm excited to see, you know, how you continue to leverage this information to serve more people and create more impact, both with your words and without. And as we wrap up here, tell everyone where the best place to find you is, and then any closing statements or stories that you feel would be necessary or that you're feeling called to share to close it up.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me your platform to share more of my message, more of my magic. This is new for me. I haven't opened up, you know, these things very often, and you know, you and others who have been around me and experienced me are urging me to do so more, and I'm looking forward to doing so. In the meantime, my Instagram is Quez Haynes _0, QUEZHAYNES _0, and my Twitter is Quez Haynes 00. Typically, if I'm sharing at this moment, I'm sharing there. I'm not sharing as much or as consistently because I'm deep in some of this stuff that we're talking about. Like, I'm really daily, really active, making sure that, you know, I'm giving myself what I need daily and that my cup is overflowing, and then I'm pouring out of it. But that's the two places that's the best place to find me right now. And I would say, you know, if I'll share one thing in closing, it's going all the way back to the beginning of this idea of tapping back into that feminine and the ability to feel. You asked me something and I answered it really quickly. You said, what's the world need more of? I said, love. And when I say love, I don't just mean like, you know, I mean that human to human, here's a stranger that I don't know, but I just relate to you on the level of humanity, humanness, that you have loved ones and you have hopes and dreams and aspirations. And because of that, I'm going to give you the best of me. If that's just holding a door for you, that's just giving you a smile. And when you can feel, right, like right now, I feel like we live in a world where, everything is logic or is mental. Everything lands in your mind. Someone tells you something and it's like, okay, what can I do with that information? What do I need to do? And so being able to like feel again, dropping into that heart space, when people talk, how does it make you feel? And I tell people a lot of times you can tell the difference, because when someone says something to you, how your mind will respond is typically different than how your heart will respond. And if you can like differentiate the two and know, and start to balance up with a little bit more of this, in all situations, it's going to change how you behave, how you think, how you respond. And, more of that'll just make this whole thing a lot easier for all of us, and so that's what I've been learning over this time is, jumping into that heartfelt space and leading from there, and bringing that mind in when it's necessary. So that's what I would say. Love and light,
Yes. Oh man, much love, brother. I appreciate you. And continue to be who you are, continue to do the work that you're doing, because it does make a difference for those that you see and those that you don't see. So much love, man. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
All right, man.